Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Today on the program, we would attempt to take a look at the many ongoing reforms in the economy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, of course, led by the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his team. A lot of Nigerians are dilly-dallying on whether or not some of these reforms have been positive or negative. But of course, those who know the economy very well would tell you that there can't be no pain or no gain without pain. But Nigerians really ready for the many pains that we are going through at the moment. So on the program today, we'll take a look at maybe not all, but some of the on reforms that this current administration is embarking on or may have introduced to make life better for Nigerians. And joining us today is a past president of the Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce, Prince Dakpo Adelegon. Thank you for being here on the program.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate your coming.
Yes.
Let's start this way because this is one of the reforms that has brought us here today and we're still dilly-dallying about this particular one. And of course, that is talking about the fuel subsidy removal. And of course, as of today, we're still queuing to buy the commodity. And government says it is not a free market. Anybody can decide to do what they want, around here. But if you take a look at the fuel subsidy, where government continually is saying fuel subsidy is gone, but a lot of people are saying, are we truly there where indeed fuel subsidy is gone? What's your take on this? And would you say that since the announcement on May 29th, 2023, and where we are today, does it look that there's an end in sight in issues surrounding fuel and its pricing in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. I think we need to put it in context.
Okay.
The president on May 29 announced that the fuel subsidy was gone, and we all celebrated because hitherto we were all complaining about the amount of money Nigeria was spending on fuel subsidy.
Right.
If you recall that the president, before the current president, actually the government was borrowing to pay subsidy. And we all, even all the presidential candidates in their campaigns,
yes,
agreed that they will, if they win the election, do away with the fuel subsidy. So the president did what was expediently right,
Okay.
to announce the departure of fuel subsidy. What may have been the problem was that maybe there was no preparation
Right.
for the aftermath in terms of palliatives, incentives, and communication.
Right.
Because the reaction of people today is that they forgot that we all applauded that decision.
True.
In May 29th. So what has happened between then and now is that we have not engaged the people enough
Okay.
to explain to them the medium and long-term impact of it, prepare palliatives, roll out buses, maybe make free transportation inevitable in some parts of the country, all over the country, to mitigate the impact of the potential rise in the cost of petroleum. One other thing that we have is the fact that we're not producing enough petrol for consumption. We have a lot of modular refineries, almost about 10 across the country. The technology, they are producing diesel and things like that, but the technology for them to be able to move into production of PMS is very expensive, average of about $5 to $10 million per refinery. I think it's incumbent and that the government should, through the central bank and the BOI, provide these funds to these modular refineries so that they are capable to produce additional PMS to augment the one that is being produced currently.
So in that regard, would you say that there's also probably undue pressure on the Dangote refinery as we speak, even though it is yet to make public its commodity, but as it were, with the importation of fuel and what the modular refineries that are not producing PMS, now that Dangote is on board, do you think that the capacity will be there to fully supply what Nigerians would need?
Well, there are many steps that would need to be taken. One, I've spoken about the need to capacitate the modular refineries with financial support from the Bank of Industry or the central bank for them to have the technology to move into production of PMS. Secondly, with the introduction of the Dangote petrol, we believe that will also help. It may not affect the price because it's a non-regulated market now, and so on and so forth. But more importantly is that governments haven't decided that this is the way to go. To stop that wastage on subsidy, must then subsidize in other ways. And that is one, transportation.
Okay.
Transportation affects even the cost of goods. 60–70% of food prices are actually cost of transporting them from the farms to the cities where they're used and procured. So those are the things that government needs to do very quickly. I just read, while I was waiting for this program, about Lagos State, for example, providing 2,000 CNG buses, providing about 5,000 taxis in partnership with the car manufacturer, local car manufacturer. Those are issues that needs to be done to ease the cost on the populace for transportation, and also thereby reducing the cost of food items.
So it means that we must get to that point where subsidy from one sector should be pruned to another sector, meaning that we cannot totally do away without subsidizing something.
No society does that.
I was going to ask you, is this what is obtainable in other countries of the world?
No, like I said, I mean, in the UK, for example, and most Western societies, subsidy remains in different guises.
Right.
For example, I want to mention that there's a bus at every bus stop in the United Kingdom every day, every 5 minutes, except on Christmas Day. So that's subsidy. You know, because even a particular age category do not pay to enter. So it's not rocket science. We need to get to the level that Nigeria is capable to provide buses for our people regularly. It's not rocket science. Okay, and that begins to ease the problem of transportation on the people and subsidize. Now, food, I mean, there are food kitchens all over different European capitals for those who are hungry to be able to walk into. I remember the Lagos State government talking about
also
food kitchens. So that should be national, you know. So there are a lot of incentives, a lot of subsidies, a lot of support that governments at various levels, at the sub-national and the national level, most quickly put in place. There is no doubt that subsidy cannot come back.
Okay.
You know, and the reason why we are where we are is simply because we don't produce cash crops. We don't generate enough dollars, and we buy petrol with that. So we export our crude, which is cheap, and then we import the more expensive product.
The refined product.
So there is no way out of our quagmire. It is a big challenge. You know, and there are other things that we need to do. But for this issue of petroleum prices, we may also look at democratization of our petroleum prices. Okay. In England, if you drive into a petrol station, you will see premium at about 1,500. You see super. So it means that if I drive a Range Rover, I can afford to pay 1,500 petrol per liter. But then that's why I've been taxed. You know, so the difference between the real value of our 800 plus that 600, that can be used to subsidize the petrol that the danfo will buy or an Okada will buy.
Right.
So we need to move away from where I pay the same price for my V8 engine car and an Okada pays the same price. So we need to democratize it, and that is important. So that will also help. So tax the people that drive big luxury cars.
They should pay the
and then
taxes.
They should pay the taxes and the incentives. What is the extra gotten on it? Apply it to now reduce what transporters and smaller cars and Okada drivers are buying. So it is not right at this stage of our development to let everybody buy petrol at the same price.
Okay, but are we really ready for that as Nigerians?
We must be ready. We're ready. There's nothing wrong with it. The private sector in this country is moving at a global level of competence and delivery.
Okay.
So the public sector can bring the private sector into this fold, and let's do it. So government may not be able to do it, but encourage and incentivize the private sector so petrol stations can be democratized and to allow people buy fuel that they need
in different prices.
I mean, some need just something slightly above kerosene, you know, and so why should they come and buy premium, you know, hard sulfur petrol at almost 900 naira.
Right, let's talk about the central bank reforms. Of course, this administration brought a change into the leadership of the Central Bank of Nigeria, and of course, Olayemi Cardoso brought a bit of changes, a bit of impact. for or against how that is at the moment. But if you look at the floating of the naira, all of those things, the unification of exchange rates and all of that, and today you look at how much the naira is changing or exchanging for the dollar or the pounds. Are you positive that the central bank is really on top of the situation?
Well, first of all, let's acknowledge the right choice of Yemi Cardoso as the governor of central bank, highly respected in business, in the economy, and that brings confidence to local and international investors in the economy. However, I do not envy his job. The job of a central bank governor is clearly stated. It is to defend our currency. But when our currency is going down and we have no income in terms of generating dollars, we're not exporting. We're not,
we're not exporting.
We're not exporting enough to generate additional power. So the reaction of any governor is to protect the local currency. And in doing that, we also have a lot of debts. So there's a dual challenge, trying to keep the exchange rates at a rate that is, permissible. At the same time, having to raise money again to pay our dollar loans. So we're in a quagmire, so to speak. With the dollar we're making, we've committed it to debt servicing. We're not generating enough export to generate dollars, and we're an import-dependent economy.
Right.
We buy everything with dollars. So it's a difficult job. We can only pray that God will lead him and give him the wisdom to be able to navigate that challenge.
I was hoping you were not going to bring God into this.
We have to.
I was hoping.
Our situation in the country today, and let me tell you this, there's no way out of it.
So a lot of people have said that is where we are now, because we tend to bring religion into everything.
No, God is not religion.
Okay, so we tend to bring God into everything.
We have
so
to.
We have to.
In everything. Listen to me.
But then, has it not also given us that wisdom that we need?
No, just listen.
Okay.
The American currency has been God we trust.
True.
That's the largest and most powerful nation in the world. If they can have a currency that says that, it shows that the God factor is important to the revival of our economy. We have mismanaged our economy. We have brought ourselves to call the sack. To go forward is a challenge. To go back is a challenge. Who then do we call to?
God. Okay. I hope we're going to also listen to how God will help us out of this particular situation.
He's able to do all things. He can turn our fortunes around.
Okay, all right. Let's look at without still before we move away from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Others have also said, as we speak, because of the way the naira is also falling, is it also safe to say that Yemi Cardoso is not on top of the game, or is it just an overwhelming situation? Does it also require a lot of more individuals who have also maybe the wherewithal? Is this a way to also bring in more stakeholders to also inject more ideas into how this can work?
The problem of Nigeria is not a question of one man capability or the other. You see, the global economic structure is strategically designed against emerging economic growth.
Okay.
And so agriculture, for example, highly subsidized. Our farmers cannot compete with products from farmers in Europe and America internationally. We don't subsidize our farmers. Okay? We have energy challenge. The technology that we require to transform our oil industry to become optimal is not available. If it's available, it's too expensive.
Okay.
I've just told you of modular refineries that can't afford the 5-10 million to turn their refinery to produce PMS.
Right.
Okay, so even if we desire to do so, okay, we don't. Industrial challenge, the production line technology that's been given to us is far, far moribund. We can't afford that technology. And we have wasted our advantages over the last few years. Okay. There was a time in this country when they had petrol. I mean, there was a government in this country that once said money is not our problem. And did not invest in the future. There was a president that came and built up almost 42, got cancellations for all our debts.
Debt relief.
Okay, within another 8 years or 10 years, the debt has gone back again. Okay, so in reality, this government is less than even 2 years. Yes, the president says he's the one that asked for the job, and if you not sympathize with him. But the reality is the fact that what he met on ground was a totally collapsed economic nation.
Right.
So I'm saying that it is not about who becomes central bank governor or who you remove and add. It's simply a situation where we have to be seriously creative. We have to cut down the cost of governance. We have to be more humble. in our approach. And compassion should be at the base of all policy formulation and exertion. If we don't do that, then we're going to go back again, deeper and deeper into that quagmire, and there'll be no way out of it.
Right. Part of what this administration has also done, or is also doing, is to also invest in social intervention programs. A couple of initiatives have been put on board to give Nigerians either soft loans or to credit Nigerians with some amount of money, the aged, the indigent. Of course, you have the student loan, you have the other scheme that was launched. Are these approaches in the right direction? Are they also able to take Nigerians away from where they are to maybe not their comfort zone, but at least meet them halfway?
There is a combination of activities that needs to be had before we begin to see some turning around.
Okay.
Government policies so far towards palliatives is quite commendable, but there's still a discussion.
Okay.
Now, because don't forget that government itself is not only dealing with the needs of the masses, but it's also dealing with the perception of the elite and the media. And therefore, there has to be some deeper, stronger discussion about what kind of society that we need.
Okay.
Okay, and in doing that, it simply means that, for example, with the elite, for example, it means that we must pay more tax.
And the elites do.
No, listen,
Okay.
I'm saying government needs to engage the elite more. It's not by threatening to build prisons to put tax dodgers. It's engagement.
Okay.
With various levels of government, the chambers of commerce, trade associations, and they will talk about their own. Oh, we are paying for more fuel, we are paying for more power, how can we pay more tax? And
double
multiple
taxation.
Tax. So, but elite in every society, they call it elite consensus, must agree with the government and private sector to say what kind of society we want to have. In the UK, for example, I told you, they decided, it's elite consensus, every 5 minutes there must be a bus at every bus stop all over UK. Except on Christmas. That's elite consensus. They also agree that government will build mass housing to ensure that every 18-year-old, once you are out of school, you can get a flat and pay mortgage over 30 years. That's elite consensus. They also agree that there's an NHS, the National Health Service, where 45% are taxed of a particular income range, where that money, part of it is used to provide health services for everybody, even visitors, at no cost. That is elite consensus. So there are many levels of decisions that we have not agreed in Nigeria about between government and private sector about how we want our societies to run. And until that discussion is had, government can only do little.
Right.
And the private sector does not feel included in that plan, doesn't have ownership in it. So we have to get to that level, and I think President Bola Tinubu, if there's any president that is the one that can do it, because it comes from the private sector and has a private sector mindset. To begin that engagement, a very, very terrible. Then the other one is the media. The media is the fourth realm of the state. Okay? So government needs to engage the media more passionately. Owners of media, editors, regularly seeking their feedback, selling their own ideas so that they can have some support. Because what we have, if you open most newspapers today, is negative about the government. And that is not so, because they're not engaged. So there's a need for that elite consensus, which includes the media, the private sector, government, about the key things that we need to do very quickly to mitigate the challenge of living in the country.
Before we look at the next sector, I'll quickly, because I mean, during the course of this conversation, you've had to mention the UK a few times. And so I'd like for you to quickly take a look at the facts that Nigeria at the moment is facing a tough time. Is it just about Nigeria? Is this also a global problem?
Is global, but those other societies, like I said, have already created the system that cushions it for the masses. Look, when you talk economic problem in Nigeria, a lot of Nigerians are still paying $4 million naira for tickets to go for summer.
True.
If you get to the airport, all the airlines are booked. So it means that a section of the country that is not affected, technically, even though they may be indirectly. Now that section of the nation needs to be brought into the discussion. So it's not punitive tax, it becomes preemptive giving. Any society that doesn't have a preemptive giving system, where its masses are giving things before they ask for it, we'll have the kind of protests and challenges we have, even when we're doing it.
But as it stands today, do you think that the elites that you're talking about are really ready? Seeing the ways things are at the moment, are they really ready to partner with the government?
Okay, I'll say some. The elites themselves are the one doing more than the government in terms of social welfare. You know how many members of my family I'm paying school fees for? Or I'm providing some support for every day. I'm sending money to a lot of people. So it means that they are also involved. But like I said, other societies have established and institutionalized those palliatives in transportation, in health, in housing. The NEL Fund, for example, the Nigeria Education Loan Fund, is a game changer. That's a major decision of government with elite consensus to provide scholarship, loan to our students, and that will help inclusion. That will bring a lot of boys into education who are from disadvantaged environment. That will lead to restiveness. I mean, like I said it once, I said, beyond even the loan, beyond the loan that you're giving, students will focus on their studies because they know they have to get out of school with good grades to get a job to be able to pay back.
Right.
Parents will be able to use their money, had them to take care of themselves, rather than spend the entire savings on students.
Okay.
In England, every person, nobody spends money, except those who can afford it, spend money on education of their children. So that is a policy. So we have to do the same, Marshall, on housing. We have to do the same thing on transportation. We have to do the same thing on health. Right. And government alone cannot do, because it needs the support of private sector in terms of taxes. I mean, ETF, for example, is a tax that private sector paid. TET fund, all of them are taxes. Right. But government must sit with elite, it's sort of national discourse.
And have this discussion.
And say, what kind of society do we want to have? Because without those established palliatives in these sectors, housing, transportation, health, and education, we're going to have the same level of protest, problems, everyday crisis.
Over and over
again. And it does not pay the private sector and does not allow our government to focus on governance.
I know you're big on digital economy and also very passionate about that sector. Would you say that digital economy and innovation is one area that this administration is tapping into? Because we do know that that's, I won't even say that's the future, that's the now. And so is this economy investing so much in digital economy and innovation? Well,
there are two sides to that. First, I think we need to commend the government for the quality of the Minister of our digital economy, that is Dr. Tijani. You can see youthfulness, you can see exposure, you can see private sector, competence in the way is that. So that is an area that we can thank God for, that in the midst of all of these challenges, that area, the creative industry, the tech industry, is moving at a pace that's unbelievable. And maybe that will be the savior of our nation in the next few years, in terms of its economic expansion, and because every aspect of our life is being affected by it. But in terms of, how does this help our current situation? Our current situation, if it's not properly dimensioned, may actually affect the full utilization and realization of the experience of our tech investment, because electricity is critical.
Sure.
Okay, it's once said before that I heard that the government had just approved that 774 local governments should be broadband. If we can do that, and I know Dr. Tijani is working towards that, if that happens, then that's a revolution in itself. Empowering our youths in every corner of the country to become global entrepreneurs, even on their phone. But we need so digital broadband access to data is critical.
It's critical.
Okay, so if we can do that, that will help. But again, the larger issue is that a lot of people are hungry, a lot of people are disillusioned, and the environment seems to be not helping them. We need to become a compassionate society, like I said, where every policy exertion is built around compassion. And that will help if the private sector and the government can sit together, because the government cannot do it alone. It's not sustainable. If the private sector buys into it, they will bring their competence, they will bring their money, and you're likely to find a successful and sustainable palliative.
In the midst of it all, people still see Nigeria as the giant of Africa, irrespective irrespective of how the situation is at the moment. And so one will take a look at trade and regional integration. How currently can you rate Nigeria in that aspect, especially with the African Continental Free Trade Area?
Okay, I think we need to applaud a section of the country, that's our financial services sector. that has dominated Africa, was dominating most of sub-Saharan Africa. Our banks. Our banks, I know a particular Nigerian bank that is a central bank to some governments. So our banks have gone ahead of us, to sort of, dominate the banking financial space in African South. The Access Bank, the GTBs, the Senate, they're everywhere, okay? And they're doing very well,
right?
Okay, because they're applying global best practices, into their operation.
Okay.
So they carry the flag of the country. So in that, we've done extremely well. So what we need to now find is manufacturing, because AFTAC provides seamless access to all African countries for any business that's willing. So we need to promote Made in Nigeria more across the continent. Incidentally, in 1999, I started something called the Made in Nigeria exhibition at the Wembley Barbican Centre in London. And we did it for London twice when President Obasanjo came in. We took it to South Africa. We need to re-engineer that,
okay,
so that in every country, every year, a caravan of Nigerian products is available to expose themselves to exhibit and then secure distributors in those parts of the country. For example, another area is our creative industry.
Right.
In every capital in Africa, our films,
our music,
our music is the in thing. So if we're making strides in music, in creative industry, in financial services across Africa, then we are capable, because the brand, Nigerian brand, is already in the mindset. We have created the way for other hard products to come forward. But there's need for the NIPC, the Ministry of Trade, to convene an annual Made in Nigeria caravan roadshow across Africa. Because we can't sit here and think everybody's competing.
We have to sell.
Everybody's competing. And for example, Nigerian yams are sold in the UK as Ghana yams. Because we
Why
don't
the
have
deception?
Because we are not pushing the right buttons.
So they would prefer to buy the Ghana.
No, because Ghana has done the right thing. Ghana has a storage in the major markets in the city of London where people can go and buy product. Nigeria doesn't have any. So there are issues around our trade, our strategy for marketing our product. And America became big by its product, Coca-Cola, burgers, music, films, and that is the first. China, for example, sort of captured the entire world, their food, Chinese restaurants all over the world, before we even started driving Chinese cars.
So we have to be deliberate.
So those soft assets that we have in music, in creative industry, and banking services must continue to move to assist us. Because we begin to lay the bigger products there. People already know Nigeria, they know our music, they enjoy our films. When we bring our products, they're likely going to consume them. But if we do not promote them, then there's nowhere we're going.
Let's talk about the small, medium enterprises.
Yes.
They are usually referred to as the engine room of every nation. But if we do have a stifling economy, one that is also not giving them that wing to fly, is the economy that friendly to SMEs? And if not, what are your suggestions this morning? What are some of the things that the federal government need to do to ensure that owners of small businesses can also thrive in their businesses?
I must confess that the federal government has done tremendously a lot in the last 2 or 3 regimes. The creation of BOI was actually supposed to support big industries as well as SMEs.
So, sorry to cut you, is BOI that accessible? Because I know you've mentioned BOI here a couple of times, but then some will say what's it called now? The interest rate at BOI is also high and peculiar, and there are also some of their what's it called, things that they need to provide to access loans are also some things that SMEs may not have access to. I don't know if you have that information.
So the loans given by BOI is single-digit interest.
It's single digit.
Yes, but you need to access these loans through a commercial bank, so that all of the prerequisites can be checked and provided. And that means that SMEs must be structured. The challenge of our SMEs is that most of our SMEs are not structured. It's a one-person business, and that's a key man risk. Now, SMEs all over the world are properly structured. That means you have directors, you have your audited accounts, you do your business in a way, and over time, if you approach a financial institution for support, you will get support. So I'm saying that we should look at the responsibilities of the SMEs. The businesses that call themselves SMEs, they're not SMEs, they're actually micro industries. the cottage industries.
Right.
And those you can't approach a bank for money for that. You need to talk to friends and family. But the moment you become SME, it means you are turning over 10 to 20, 25, $30 million naira a year. And so you need to be structured.
Right.
You need to have your documents, you need to have your books checked, you need an audited account regularly, you need to have your bank statement, you need to do things on the table. Because you cannot, anywhere in the world, even as an SME, access funding without those imperatives.
Right.
So maybe what we need is to empower our SMEs more with ability to structure, lead them. But maybe BOI also has to have a program that allows training, entrepreneurial training in terms of structuring their business to do. Then number two, no SME can survive without linkages to a large industry. So SMEs delude themselves to assume
that you can stay on your
own and then begin to grow. There's no way. You need to find a Cadbury or a Coca-Cola or a Unilever that you're supplying a product or you're providing a service for. And I told you once, I said many years ago when MTN came into this country, one of the companies I chaired had need to do business with MTN. By just that association, that company was transformed.
Okay.
Because MTN will insist on some minimum standard of reporting.
Right.
Of accounting. So when a small SME aligns with a big organization,
company,
the culture of structuring, the culture of due diligence, and doing things right becomes imperative. And that prepares them to access financing, whether it's equity or it's debt.
Right. I'm not sure we can end this conversation without talking a bit about agriculture, because it's also part of the economy. And as we speak, it looks like there's not much coming in from that sector at the moment, especially from the federal minister saddled with that responsibility at the federal level. But for you, how big should a country be about her agricultural plans, agricultural support? And again, we talk about insecurity and farmers in Nigeria. I know that is also a big concern. We would come to that, but we need to take a very short commercial break. Now, when we return, we would, okay, so maybe I can just take this question on agriculture and then we'll call for this break. So at the moment, can you, I don't know if you have any success story to say about the agricultural sector as it is, and if you do have, maybe you'd like to share. At the moment, the agricultural sector, is it one sector that is meeting beyond measures, especially at this particular point in time?
Let me start that answer by stating a fundamental issue. Hitherto, Africa was meant to provide agricultural raw materials for production to the Western society. And because Africa was the food basket of the world. But they found out that their farmers could not compete. And in the Treaty of Rome in 1955, there was something, a development came up where they decided to incentivize and subsidize the agriculture.
Okay. To
ensure they can have those essential wheats and all of those grains and corns that they require for food. So today, almost 40–50% of farmers are subsidized. They are paid ahead for their harvest. And even if there are excesses, they're also paid. So there's incentive for people to go to agriculture. What we have not done in the country is to glamorize agriculture.
Okay, Prince, let me just hold your thoughts. So when we come back, you will talk about glamorizing agriculture. We'll take a quick break. When we return, it'll be time to continue this conversation.
When you wake up in the morning, you want to start your day. Start with Kellogg's,